What's up, what's going on, legends? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into Modern Warfare Zombies, and I'm bringing you guys a quick guide to the Sigil and Elder Sigil versions of the new Dark Aether Rift for Season 3. Now, this is for those of you that have already unlocked it. If you haven't, I will leave the link to my video down in the comment section below pinned, so you guys can go check that out if you're still trying to unlock the new Aether Rift. Now, I think at this point, we should all have a pretty good idea of what to expect when going into the Dark Aether, so you should know how to prepare yourself, but I will say one thing I will recommend, especially for this one, will be extra Casimirs, as again, we will be revisiting one of our favorite contracts going into this new rift. Outside of that, if you would like to bring yourself a Scorcher in order to get to these contracts a little bit quicker, you can always do that, but that's not necessarily required for success. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are going into the regular Sigil version of this Dark Aether, you won't get access to the schematics at all, as they are only rewards for completing the contracts in the Elder version, but you will get access to many of these new schematics as acquisitions within that regular Sigil, and also give you the opportunity to get an Elder Sigil if you're looking to grab one. That way you can go back to it going into the much harder version, and you have a little bit better idea of what to expect. For the regular Sigil, you will get a 30-minute time period, and then for the Elder, you will get only 15. So I definitely recommend going into the regular version first. That way you can get a rough idea of what you're getting yourself into, practice the contracts at least one time through, get access to some of these new rewards, try them out, and even maybe get yourself an Elder Sigil if you don't have one. Now, once you actually spawn into the new Dark Aether Rift, these contracts will be substantially easier to spot. They actually made them these seals, basically just pedestals or relics, whatever you want to refer to them as. You're going to head over to them, and they have this giant beam that glows up into the sky. It definitely reminds me of the mystery box. However, instead of a blue glow, it does have a yellow or gold-like glow. You should be able to spot it from extremely far away, and as early as whenever you spawn into the Dark Aether. Now, I'm going to be mentioning all of these locations based on your attack map, but once you actually spawn in, this first one we're going to be going to is the one that looks like it is over to the far right. This is going to be your Escort contract, and definitely the one I'm going to recommend you do first. It will take you the most time. You are going to struggle with it the most, and it does have the highest chance of you failing it due to the fact that it is a very difficult one to do within the Dark Aether. Now, this Escort contract is going to be located at the top of the building, kind of in the bottom right corner of F6. You will go up, make your way to the top. You are going to then need to activate the seal, or essentially just interact with it. What it's going to do is break the top, revealing the contract inside. And this contract is going to look a little bit weird. It's not going to be the Aether Bunnies. It's going to be an Atomic Hunter, which is kind of like an arm that you're going to have to grab. You're going to grab that. It's going to put this item into your inventory. Don't worry, we'll cover those items later. But essentially, you just go ahead and that will start the contract. You'll be able to make your way over to your Escort. Now, this Escort's pretty close by. This thing is going to be extremely difficult to do. Even in a 3-man, it can be kind of tough just because it is so easy for the ACV to go down. Biggest recommendation for this will be the VR11 if you're looking to do it the easiest possible way, because you can then heal the Escort along the way. Otherwise, I would just bring a ton of Casimirs, put a couple of sentry guns on top if you're extremely worried about it, and you guys shouldn't have too many issues being successful. The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to this Escort contract is normally when you do an Escort, it has 3 stops that it makes. We made the mistake in our first run of expecting it to only have 3 stops. It does actually go to a 4th stop, which was actually the source of us losing our ACV in the first one, because we thought we were actually almost done and we still had a little ways to go. So do keep that in mind when you are doing this Escort. It does have 4 stops, so just pay extra attention to the ACV's health along the way. That way you guys are making sure that you're defending it accordingly. Next, we have the bounty. Whenever you actually come into the map, it's going to be the far left one, and this one is actually going to be located right where the entity was in the story mission, around the F2 grid square. This one is going to be the same thing. It's going to be a relic or pedestal you're going to head over to. You'll be able to identify it by the glowing light in the sky. You'll head over to it. You will then interact. It will break the top off, this time revealing a different item as the contract, this one being a mind-blowing revelation. Kind of looks like a brain. You will grab that. It will start the bounty contract. This one should only be a Mega Abomination, but I do have some extremely unfortunate news. They have nerfed the ability to call in Juggernauts or anything like that to kind of help you in this situation. So unless you have sentry guns, you're going to have to pretty much fight this thing as normal and natural as possible. So definitely make sure you are prepared with a fairly good weapon to take on a Mega Abomination, as it will kind of be relevant to your success here, and it will be significantly harder than it was in other rifts because, again, you're not going to be able to utilize the Juggernaut to destroy him. But essentially, you're just going to wait for him to show his glowing crit spots, and you're going to shoot at him accordingly until you eliminate him. Now, the last contract is going to be an Outlast, aka, basically to defend the P&D. This one is going to be an I3 on the right middle of the attack map, and it's going to be similar, going over, activating that relic. This time you're going to get a numb foot. You'll grab that. It will start the Outlast contract. You'll go over, initiate the P&D, do what you always do in those, and just defend it for as long as possible until the progress bar goes all the way up. Once you do so, that will complete this contract. This one's probably the most straightforward. I don't think it's all that difficult. However, again, make sure you have those Casimirs. They're going to be extremely helpful throughout this entire Dark Aether Rift because it can be quite challenging with the amount of zombies that you do get. Now, we actually have a secret contract or a bonus boss fight that does exist within this new Season 3 Rift. In the center of the attack map, or basically the little island in the middle is what I like to refer to it as, there's going to be some spores very similar to the ones you get when you do the Spore Control contract. There's going to be some smaller ones in 3 locations on the outsides of the island, kind of. The first one going to be towards the North Bridge in E3. There's going to be one in the bottom left center of the island in E4. There's going to also be one in F4 near the Aether portal. And apparently, in order to be able to destroy these, you need to have all of the items that you got from completing the contracts in your inventory. If you don't have access to one of those items, you probably won't be able to destroy one of those spores, or at least that's the rumor so far. I wasn't able to actually test this up until this point. I had all 3 of the items whenever we actually did it, or at least we had all 3 of the items all the times that we actually interacted with these. So I wasn't able to confirm if they were required for it, or if they're just for something completely different that no one's discovered up until this point. But basically, all you have to do is destroy the outside 3 spores. Then there is going to be a giant spore in the center that you will then be able to destroy. It will then start a Disciple boss fight. Now, this thing is actually pretty tough. I had 2 completely different runs. One where we had half of our group leave a little early instead of fighting the boss, which then made it significantly harder. The main thing with this Disciple is you'll start doing damage to it. Then eventually its health bar will go gray. At that point, it will spawn both a Mimic and a Mangler, which are essentially its minions. You'll then need to take both of them out before its health bar will return back to its ability to then take damage once again. You will continue this process. It might take you multiple times of taking out the minions, just depending on how fast you're doing damage. In my second run where we actually did this, we had a much better group. We were able to damage and stun the Disciple so often that it wasn't able to do anything, didn't even spawn anything in, and we just torched through its health bar. But my recommendation for this would just be to come in prepared with Deadwire. That way you're best set up for success, taking on the Disciple boss at the end if you choose to do so. Once you guys actually eliminate this boss fight, it will spawn another reward rift. Essentially, it is like completing a 4th contract because it does give you another chance to get rewards, and if you are in the Elder Sigil, another chance to get those schematics. But now this is a perfect time to dive into the schematics, which are going to be the golden gas mask filter, the Deadwire detonators, and the Sergeants Beret. And in order to get all 3 of these, this is the reason I'm mentioning these after we talked about all of the contracts, is these are only available, again, in the Elder Sigil version of the Dark Aether, and essentially all 4 of the contracts have an opportunity for you to get one of the plans. There is no guarantee of getting any specific one from a specific contract. As in my runs, the first run I was only able to get the golden gas mask plans, whereas one of my teammates was able to get that and the Deadwire detonators. And then in another one of our runs, we actually got one of the plans available from completing the boss fight, and a few of the other ones we got were actually repeats or from doing different contracts. So essentially, it doesn't matter which contract you complete, but if you do manage to complete the Escort, the Bounty, the Outlast, and the boss fight, that will give you 4 opportunities in order to actually get these plans or any rewards that they might offer. Again, if you guys are in the regular version of the Sigil, you'll only get rewards for completing these, but if you are in the Elder, you do have that opportunity to get those new schematics. Now, the last thing I want to mention is at least one of the locations on how you get out of the Dark Aether is going to be located in that center island in the bottom right corner of F4. You guys should be able to spot it once you're in that area, and if you guys looked for the spores for the boss fight, you probably came across it naturally. But that's going to wrap things up for today's video. Thank you guys for all the support in today's video, all the support in the channel, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one. Peace.